Well, welcome to Christian Answers. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we're going to be looking at another Hollywood celebrity trying to convince the people of the merits of abortion. And as Christians, we are struggling to try to maintain the sanctity of human life. We know the Bible protects human life because we're made in the image of God. We are made in God's image. Genesis, the early chapters talk about that. And Christianity in the church is pretty much the last bastion of defense against this immoral culture of death that's taking place in our nation, in the world, actually, the Western world, especially the secularized West. And so Christianity is the last bastion of hope for the unborn. So we have to defend life at every stage and not capitulate to the culture of death, the secular left. But we are constantly having to battle every day in the news media and every day in our culture. Here's an example of the culture of death, again, trying to convince, trying to persuade, trying to influence young people. And it comes in the form of feminist propaganda. Yes, the 60s, that was the sexual revolution. And then in the 70s, we got the feminist revolution. Now, the feminist revolution always tries to convince you and convince everyone that it's all about women and empowering women and giving women choices and freeing women from the patriarchy. And you just can go through the list of talking points that the feminists have convinced people must be present in society for people to be truly free. But if you look at the fruit of feminism over the last 2, 3, 4 decades, you will find misery, suffering, pain, grief. It's just a wreckage of human lives and human relationships that have resulted from the feminist movement of the 70s. Well, one of the key planks of the feminist talking points is abortion, unrestricted, women's total right to kill or murder their child in the womb. And so we have an actress accepting an award at the Golden Globe Awards just a few weeks ago, named Michelle Williams, Best Actress in a TV series. And she is going to explain to the audience why abortion was a really good thing for her. And so let's watch this pro-abortion clip, and then let's analyze it and take it apart piece by piece, because we really have to be able to refute these arguments. These cultural death arguments, are insanity. They are easily dismantled and taken apart, and I will show you why at the core of all of this feminist thinking, especially the abortion issue, is selfishness, radical selfishness. And you will see that in her speech at the Golden Globe Awards, and you will see this in the National Organization of Women when they talk about abortion. You will see this in Planned Parenthood propaganda when they talk about abortion. It is at core a selfishness that motivates people to seek to kill their offspring. This is a woman, Michelle Williams, who is pregnant at the time. She is actually pregnant. She's going up in front of thousands of people present at the Golden Globe Awards and then millions of people through television. And she's talking, while she's pregnant, she's talking about how great it is to be able to kill her baby in the womb, and how she evidently did kill her baby to further her acting career in the past. At some point in her life, in her past, she has used abortion to get to where she is today, she explains. So let's watch this video clip, and then let's talk about the selfishness that we see here, and how as Christians we need to counter these arguments. We need to counter the argument from selfishness with the gospel of Jesus Christ and the biblical message of God's love for us, and then our obligation to love one another as we love ourselves, which includes loving the unborn. And so let's roll the clip and hear this ridiculous argument that Michelle Williams gave at the Golden Globe Awards.
Thank you so much. First of all, to my Fosse Verdon family and to the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. When you put this in someone's hands, you're acknowledging the choices that they make as an actor, moment by moment, scene by scene, day by day, but you're also acknowledging the choices they make as a person, the education they pursued, the training they sought, the hours they put in. I'm grateful for the acknowledgement of the choices I've made, and I'm also grateful to have lived at a moment in our society where choice exists, because as women and as girls, things can happen to our bodies that are not our choice. I've tried my very best to live a life of my own making, not just a series of events that happened to me, but one that I could stand back and look at and recognize my handwriting all over, sometimes messy and scrawling, sometimes careful and precise, but one that I had carved with my own hand, and I wouldn't have been able to do this without employing a woman's right to choose.
Abortion propaganda. Bad, terrible, awful role model for children and for young women. Awful.
To choose when to have my children and with whom, when I felt supported and able to balance our lives, knowing, as all mothers know, that the scales must and will tip towards our children. Now, I know my choices might look different than yours, but thank God, or whomever you pray to, that we live in a country founded on the principle that I am free to live by my faith and you are free to live by yours. So
which
women
does
18 to 118, when it
include
is time
abortion.
to vote, please do so in your own self-interest. It's what men have been doing for years.
Another feminist propaganda brought these pitiful feminist
It's what
women
men have
to
been
tears.
doing for years, which is why the world looks so much like them. But don't forget, we are the largest voting body in this country. Let's make it look more like us. Tommy and Matilda, I can't wait to come home to you.
Really bad. Really, really bad. And we're going to talk about what she said and also read between the lines what she didn't say. The end was just pure feminist propaganda, bemoaning the way the world is because of the men who created the world the way it is. All these bad and evil things are happening because men are in charge. And so we need to get women empowered, her message is, so that the world is a better place, because we know that if we leave it in the hands of men, it will go bad and worse and get worse and worse and worse. So we need to get it into the powerful hands of women so that the world looks better. That's the message that the feminists bring to the world. And that's unfortunately the message that a lot of these young girls today growing up are learning. They're also learning that unless you can kill your baby at any point in your pregnancy, then you're not really truly free and you're not empowered. And this is all a lie. So let's read the article here in Slate magazine. I'm looking at this Slate online, and I just played the video clip that was on the Slate website. It's from NBC News, so it's fair use. I'm using it for analysis purposes, so there should be no problem. It says, at the Golden Globe Awards on Sunday night, Michelle Williams credited her professional achievements to a woman's right to choose. So what she must be saying is that she wouldn't be the actress that she is. She wouldn't be winning this award if it weren't for her abortion that she had, or abortions. Shouldn't necessarily assume that it was only one abortion she had. Maybe she had actually 2 or even 3. She doesn't say, but all she knows is she says she credits her professional achievements to abortion. That's what it's saying. A woman's right to choose, and that is choose to murder her offspring, to kill her baby, to kill her child, to kill her baby boy, to kill her baby girl. She credits her acting success on her ability to kill her children in the past. that opened up opportunities for her. In other words, sacrifice these children on the altar of career. She was willing to sacrifice her babies in the womb and have them murdered intentionally in order to fulfill her aspiration of becoming an actress. That is pretty selfish. And that's what we're going to see at the core of the entire pro-abortion movement. The whole feminist movement is selfishness. It says, while accepting the award for Best Actress in a limited series or motion picture made for TV for her turn as Gwen Verdon in Foss Verdon, Williams made an astute connection between the choice, astute. That's the editorial's opinion, and that is written by Christina Cauterucci. So here is a feminist writer, journalist, who is interjecting a very astute observation, she says, that Michelle Williams made. Connection between the choices of an actor makes in her professional life and the choices she makes in her personal life. Yes, that's fine. That makes sense. But does that personal choice include killing another human being? It shouldn't. She thanked her Hollywood Foreign Press Association for the award, noting that awards recognize not only the choices an actor makes on screen, but also the education they pursued, the training they sought, and the hours they put in. She went on, I am grateful for the acknowledgement of the choices I've made, and also grateful to have lived in a moment in our society where choices exist. Because as women and girls, things can happen to our bodies that are not our choice. And I think what she's saying there is she's part of the 60s revolution, the aftermath of the 60s revolution, the sexual immorality, the casual sex, the message of feminists that you can go out and you can be loose and casual with your morality, and you can sleep around, and you can have 25, 30, 40, 50 sexual encounters. You can have hookup culture. You can do what you want to do with your sexuality. And you need a choice that when you get pregnant, you need to have the choice of whether to have that baby or to kill that baby. And she's talking about choice, and she's talking about happy to have lived in a moment in our society where the choice exists. In other words, she's happy that she's lived in the United States post Roe v. Wade, 1973. Roe v. Wade, the infamous abortion decision that basically legalized abortion from at any moment in time, even up to the point of delivery. You can essentially kill your child in the womb under the legal protection of the United States laws, according to the Supreme Court of the United States. And that's why in a few weeks, I'm hoping to travel to Washington, D.C. and be a part of the March for Life 2020. March for Life, it's where people from all over the country come together once a year around the anniversary of the Roe v. Wade decision in 1973. That was January 22nd, 1973, when the Supreme Court legalized abortion in all 50 states and set us on a course where we have killed over 60 million children in the womb. 60 million innocent little children in the womb because of women like Michelle Williams, because they had something better to do than to bring their child to life into the world and raise their child like mothers have done for centuries and millennium. When you get pregnant, you have a child, you raise that child because that child is a human being. Now, Michelle Williams is really grateful that she's lived in a world of Roe v. Wade, and she has had the choice of whether, when she gets pregnant, whether to have the child or to kill the child. It says, because things can happen to our bodies that are not our choice. In other words, we can get pregnant when we didn't even want to get pregnant. And it just kind of happens to our bodies. And that's a lie. It's really a lie. When a woman has sex, she is acknowledging and opening herself up to the possibility that she might have a child. And if she gets pregnant, it didn't just happen to her. It's natural for it to happen. It's normal for it to happen. It's the will of God for it to happen. When you have sex, when a woman decides to have sex with a man, she is opening up her body to be pregnant, and she is opening up her mind to allow and permit another human life to be formed in her womb. And if she chooses not to do that, then she is murdering her child once conceived in her womb. So Michelle Williams is actually, this is really pretty sinister stuff that she's talking about. She's talking about the right that she's happy to have, that she can murder her baby. You could make the same argument in a world where infanticide, or killing your child after it's born, is made. She could have said, I am really grateful to be a part of a society that allows for infanticide after I had my child. I just realized I didn't have what it took to raise that child, and so I had someone kill it. That is just the same argument as what she just said. We go on. She says, I've tried my very best to live a life of my own making. Get the selfishness in my own making, and not just a series of events that happened to me, but one that I could stand back and look at and recognize my handwriting all over it. So it's me, 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 me. Sometimes messy and scrawling, sometimes careful and precise, but one that I had carved with my own hand, my own hand, my own choices, my will. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without this employing a woman's right to choose when to have my child and with whom. So she's saying, I'm glad that I had the right to an abortion. I took advantage of the right to an abortion, and I'm happy that I have the right to abortion because it helped me do what I wanted to do. Now, that's a very scary and evil and sinister thing to say. Because what she's really saying is, I wanted to have sex as much as I wanted to have sex with whomever I wanted to have sex, but I didn't want to get pregnant. And so I'm really happy that abortion is legal so I can cover up for my mistakes. I can cover up for things that happen to me that I don't want. And what I wanted was, I wanted to have sex with men, and a lot of it, but I didn't want to get pregnant. And so when I did get pregnant, I am really happy that I could have my child killed in my womb by going to an abortion doctor who would take money from me and kill my baby. I am really happy to have that opportunity in this country. So that's what she's really saying. This is the message that's being presented to our culture today, and young women are hearing it. Now, without using the word abortion, Williams made a point that abortion right advocates have used to build support for reproductive rights. Reproductive rights, that is really a strange phrase. Reproductive rights. Women have reproductive rights, and they've had reproductive rights all throughout history, even before abortion. The right to reproduce, you have a right to reproduce. Anyone who wants to have sex is making the right to reproduce. The people who want to have abortions are saying, I don't want the consequences of exercising my right to reproduce. That's what they're saying. That people who oppose abortion should make that choice for themselves, not for everyone else. It's not about people making the choice for the woman. It's about upholding human dignity and acknowledging that the baby in the womb is a person. And that the woman, not even the woman, can make the choice of life and death to that child in the womb. Because once that child is conceived, it's a person made in the image of God. You cannot decide whether to kill that baby or not. It is not a right that you have as a human being to go around killing children. I know my choices may look different than yours, she says, but thank God, or whomever we pray to, that we live in a country founded on the principles that I am free to live by my faith and you are free to live by yours, Williams said. What does this have to do with killing your baby? The people that founded this nation did not intend to set up a government that would allow mothers to kill their babies. But she's reading back into history this so-called right. It's not a right that's found actually even in the Constitution. It's founded on a principle that isn't even founded in the Constitution. So you have this so-called right to choose that is based on this so-called right to privacy, which is not actually even spelled out in the Constitution. So you have the Constitution, Supreme Court read into it a principle of privacy, and then the Supreme Court later on read into the principle that it read from the Constitution to get the right to choose to have an abortion. This is insanity. And yet she's going back and saying, I'm glad that I live in a country that was founded on the right to have my abortion. There is no such right. And to bring God into it and to thank God and whomever we pray to, God had nothing to do with the abortion decision of 1973 Roe v. Wade, except to store up judgment for someday that in the future, if we don't change that law, this judgment will come upon our nation and destroy our country. That's about the only connection God has with that ungodly, evil decision of Roe v. Wade. But again, you have feminist propaganda brought into it, bringing God into the picture, bringing the founding of our country into the picture, and freedom and all the other things totally out of context. It's just gibberish. It's meaningless. Many of Sunday night's acceptance speeches included a personal or political call to action. Russell Crowe, who was in his home country, Australia, contending with the wildfires ravaging the continent, sent a message that called the fires climate change based and a reason to move our global workforce to renewable energy. Patricia Arquette called attention to the president's threats to commit war crimes against Iran. Brad Pitt told everyone to be nice. Yeah, Hollywood crowd. They have zero credibility. And Ricky Gervais, the comedian, basically lampooned the whole Hollywood establishment by saying, if you win an award, just come up. Don't share your politics with us. You're in no place to lecture us. And if you haven't seen that monologue that Ricky Gervais gave the Golden Globe Awards audience at first, it's really nice. It takes them to task. Michelle Williams already had this written. Evidently, she wasn't going to listen to Ricky Gervais. But Williams' speech stood out in its rhetorical elegance. That is, again, an editorial description by the author of this, Christina here. She thought it was elegant. I guess from a feminist propaganda perspective, it was a great piece of feminist pro-abortion propaganda. Impassioned delivery. Yes, it was impassioned, but so was Hitler impassioned about what he believed. Doesn't make it right just because someone is impassioned about something. And surprisingly personal in nature. Yes, it was a personal story, which really appeals to a lot of people today, rather than reason through these moral issues. It's mostly all about passion and personal stories and so forth. And that's part of the propaganda machinery. Its power is a testament to the importance of women's representation in politics. No one knows the value of reproductive rights like someone who's exercised them. So in other words, No one knows the power in being able to kill your own children except someone who has killed her own children. That is Michelle Williams. So, again, this is just dripping with propaganda of the feminist and pro-abortion cause. And as yet, as Williams knows, many women continue to support politicians who are working to roll back these rights. She ended her speech with a plea to these women that they might start voting in their own self-interest. It's what men have been doing for years, she said with a sweet smile to a round of applause, which is why the world looks so much like them. But don't forget, we are the biggest voting body in the country. Let's make it look more like us. What a self-centered, selfish person this Michelle Williams is. Not only is she selfish in that she's willing to kill her children to further her own career, she is selfish in every aspect of this speech. She then turns to the women and says, we need to make our world more like women. She needs, and then she goes into this propaganda for the world looks like men, and that's the problem, and so we need to make it look like women, and that will solve the problems. This is something that we had better get used to, because this is going to happen more and more and more and more as we lose moral standards, as we lose our Christianity, as we lose sanity, as we lose the semblance of a moral order. You're going to see just raw political power. Raw political power. It's like there are more of us. In other words, we're the largest voting body in this country. Let's make it look more like us. In other words, let's just do raw political power. We want to do what we want to do, and we're not going to let anyone get in our way. And if we have to kill our babies in the womb to get where we want to be in our careers, if we have to confront men and push them out of leadership, if we have to change the society and change the world to get what we want, and we're the biggest group, then let's do it. There's no principles here. There's no moral standards here. It's just let's exercise raw political power and do a power grab. It's just a sad moment in our country that we have to see this happen in the United States. So we need to pray for our country, pray that the Lord sends a revival, that we don't have to go deeper and deeper into the darkness like Michelle Williams is describing. Well, I hope that's been a helpful analysis. We'll see you back next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.